Hello, peeps and creeps, and welcome to Fright Club. I'm Gav, he's Danny,
Hello.
and we are the Fright Club NI, and this is a brand new episode of Monday Night Frights. And on tonight's episode, we're talking about Ari Aster's second feature film, Midsommar. And we're back with another episode of Monday Night Frights, episode 3.6, and tonight we're talking about the viscerally violent Midsommar, or Midsommar, Danny.
Midsommar. Hello.
Midsommar.
I love your flower crown. You're
Yes.
obviously this year's Midsommar Queen.
The May King, or Queen.
Yes,
if you
May
call me the May Queen, you can go ahead. But we are in the middle of May, and we thought, let's do
Yes.
Midsommar, because, it's brilliant. So let's talk about that.
Exactly.
It's
so
also-
good.
It's also one of like the most kind of bleakest movies that I've ever seen in my life.
Mhm.
But I do love it.
I don't know. There's something about this film that, despite how bleak and sort of violent it is, and the kind of the prominence of death in it,
Mhm.
there's something about the communal grief that I find really comforting in this. There's a real sort of message about communal grief and
You're
the
sick,
benefits.
Danny.
I don't know.
You're a
know.
sick fucker.
See the way when they're all like crying together,
Yes,
together
of
and stuff. I'm like that seems quite healthy. Like that
Yeah.
seems a good thing. And obviously we will talk about it more as we get into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's something about this film that, despite everything, we start off with a character who is alone in her grief, and she's not even getting support from the one person that's meant to be like her closest, her boyfriend. She's not getting it from there. She's alone in that grief. But as the film progresses, she actually becomes part of this community who take it in their stride to embrace death and to embrace grief
Mhm.
and make something of it. And I don't know. There's something, I think that's quite a good message.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the whole film itself is about Danny's journey.
Mhm.
From
My
the start.
journey.
Yeah, your
My
journey, Danny.
Lady Danny.
Danny with an I.
Danny
She,
with an eye.
her journey from the start of the movie to the end, and the whole thing is really just about her journey through her grief.
Yeah.
And lots of mad shit happens, and we'll get really deep into the weeds. However, we
Yes.
have to before we even get started, we have to say a massive thank you to
Yes.
the guys over on YouTube from the Night Watch Zone, because last week we were nominated for Small Horror Tuber of the Month,
Yeah.
which is a massive privilege.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, those guys over there nominated us with a couple other great YouTubers,
Mhm.
and it's amazing honor to be looked on and to have the positive feedback from fellow YouTubers and fellow horror peeps. They have a video on their YouTube at the minute. You can go on and vote. We're not shilling for votes. You can
No.
vote for whoever you want.
Exactly.
There's a couple other great guys on there. Go ahead and vote for them too. It's all about growing the community and becoming friends with other horror tubers. So, but yeah, we're just really happy to be put into that small group. So thanks for the nomination, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers. We're going to talk about Midsommar now. Are we going to call it Midsummer or Midsommar?
Midsommar.
Midsommar. Let's just call
I
it.
know. I
Midsommar.
feel like if I start saying Midsommar, I'm gonna start doing like a Swedish chef
I
impression.
heard it.
So I should.
We really don't want to go down the stereotypical sort of
No.
stuff. So we'll just call it Midsommar.
Yeah.
Ari Aster is fine with it being called Midsommar, as far as I'm aware, from what I've read. This is his second feature film. His first one was Hereditary, which I know you're a massive fan of. I haven't seen Hereditary.
Have you not?
Oh,
I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm a massive fan. I definitely prefer Midsommar to Hereditary.
Okay.
But I did enjoy Hereditary. But the only thing I would say is when I seen it, I was in a cinema in Liverpool where you could buy like decanters of wine, and then I had already been out for dinner, so we'd had a few drinks, and then we got to the cinema. We then bought a decanter of wine, so we're kind of sitting there watching Hereditary like half cut, and it was just like, you're just gonna sit there
in your
all
wine
the
glass like this.
The wee girl's head just came off. You're just sort of it made for intense viewing when you've consumed a few bevies. But no, I think I prefer Midsommar to Hereditary, but both fantastic films. Fantastic
promise
films.
I'll get onto Hereditary. I don't know why I haven't watched it.
We could do that next season. We could revisit Mr. Astor's work and enjoy a little Hereditary. Enjoy Mr. Gabriel Byrne.
Ooh, all the wee minis, all the wee miniatures and stuff.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I know for a fact that he brought over from that first feature film was grief.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it seems to be a thing that he enjoys writing about, and this is what Midsommar is about. It's all about personal grief that then kind of is pushed onto other people, and it's about, as we said, about Dani's journey throughout her grief, because at the start of this movie, absolute horrible tragedy happens where her sister kills herself and also her parents.
Too.
It's carbon monoxide poisoning, isn't it?
Way to go, like. She's she's attached hoses to the exhausts of the cars and then led them up through the house. And it's even like, yes, the mom and dad are kind of like lying in bed. They've sort of gone off in their sleep by breathing in the gas. But she's like taped the end of her hose to her mouth, and it's all like tape. But you can see the like vomit has started to like come out around the tape, and it's such a haunting image. And again, it's an image that like pops up throughout the film quite a bit. Like we obviously see it at the start when they're showing the crime scene, but later on when Danny's kind of having, I think it's like a nightmare scene, and you see your sister lying up against the rock that's at the bottom of the cliff from another very sort of, I would say, iconic scene to this movie. You see the sister again with the tape all across her mouth lying up against that rock. But yeah, what an opening to a movie. It's so dark and gloomy, and you've got, because it opens with the like Nordic Swedish singing, and that just those lovely shots of just like open snow-covered forest, and then it just cuts to the tops of the houses all covered in snow, and again it's all very quite dark. A lovely blue hue in there. Yeah, and then you just get that it's nighttime, and it's such a contrast that opening. It goes on for about 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah.
The opening, and then from there, after all that darkness, it's just light. It's constant bright light, loads of color, greens and lovely blue sky, and all the colors of the costumes and the flowers and everything. It's such a contradiction to the start of the film, which is so dark and grim and isolated.
Obviously, that's done for a reason, you know. I mean, Ari Aster is a fantastic filmmaker. The film's gorgeous, and he's clearly done that for a reason, you know, to sort of, it's the difference between light and darkness and good and evil, and that sort of idea that, you know, at the start of the movie, her life's shrouded in darkness and tragedy and grief, and when she goes to Sweden, even though she's still suffering grief and she's still getting through it, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It just ends up being a different type of light, because obviously of what happens, and it's a fantastic fucking ending, which we'll get to. It's just amazing. It's beautiful, beautiful film. I really, really enjoyed just the visuals in it, and even the, you know, the visceral, violent images, which there's a few images in here that's just like, holy fuck, and I wasn't expecting it when I first saw it, and it just completely blew my mind.
It's definitely the scene, the mountain, their cliff scene is one that you just don't forget. Like, you can't forget the images from that scene. And there's a lot throughout this and the imagery and stuff, and I think that a lot of the imagery of this film has sort of, again, it's sort of, I think it's the thing with A24 films, they really go for like those iconic images. You've got like The Witch, and you've got Good Times, and you've got this, and you have Hereditary, and you know, there's all like, of all those films, you can always sort of remember like an iconic scene or a performance or some sort of image that just sticks with you from each of those films. They're very, very stylistic and fucking beautiful, man.
Beautiful. So let's go on to the budget. The budget for this was $9 million.
We've got facts this week. Yay!
Here we go.
Back to straight numbers.
$9 million this film costs, and it raked in just under 50 million, I think, at the box office, about 48 million. So, very well done, Mr. Ari Aster in A24. And, again, it's just been one of those films that once it got released after the cinema release, on streaming and stuff like that, it was just another thing that people call on to. And a lot of people, it is a kind of a bit of a Marmite film. People are just like, no, it was so visceral and just too much. It was very, it would give you a panic attack, it would give you an anxiety attack.
You know what, really, for this film that gives me more the kind of the heebie-jeebies compared to like all the violence and the blood and the gore, and the thing that really sort of like makes me anxious is the pulsating flowers. When they're like tripping and
yes.
the way things are just like flowing and pulsing at you, and the grass is growing up through your hands and stuff. That really, really unsettled me, and I remember watching it in the cinema and that happening and being a bit like, ooh, that's I don't like it. It just made me really uncomfortable and seeing it. And there's a bit, it's more towards the end of the film, but Pele,
yes,
brings them to the village. He kisses Danny when she's all done, and her, she's just being crowned the queen, and he goes over and he kisses her. But there's like one of the flowers in the crown, like when she's getting kissed, like really like pulsated. It's showing her mood, but it just really is like pulsating. And I was like, that's dirty.
That's it's like symbolic for like, ooh, like
excitement,
sort of like an orgasm or something, or fucking
just
something.
It's obviously reflective of her mood and the feeling that she's having while she's having her trip and stuff. But yeah, just those pulsating flowers just turned me a wee bit.
Well, one of the massive themes about this film is procreation as well, because obviously when you get deep into the sort of cult and stuff, it's all about surviving and going to the next generation and procreating. Yes, and that's the whole kind of point of the whole thing, is that they make sacrifices, and they have to do it because they have to purge the evil. They have to protect their cult or their commune, and and they need to procreate as well. So that was her when she won the May Queen. I think it was symbolic of her kind of being reborn, I suppose. And again, it's that sort of the flowers are growing, they're pulsating, they're being reborn, they're vibrating.
Full of life.
Full of life, yeah.
Full of life, so, thriving.
I know this is a pretty poor attempt.
See if that starts pulsating, man, I'm leaving. I just went, nope, no pulsating flowers for me. Thanks.
No. So anyway, Florence Pugh, who is, man, I'm in love with her. She's just such a fantastic actress. And do you know that the thing that I love most about her is she just seems like a really down to earth human being that sometimes it's hard to find in that business. I watched some of her during the lockdown. I watched some of her Instagrams. She was like cooking and stuff in her kitchen, and it was just really funny to watch. And
I love you see sometimes on like press stuff for like A24 and all, her and the Irish actress, the Ladybird, yes, Saoirse Ronan. When you see them two kind of hanging out, and they just seem to be like really enjoying themselves and just like, as you say, down to earth, not taking it too seriously, just kicking back and just having the crack. And yeah, as you say, she's a fantastic actress in this film. I mean, absolutely goes for it. There's another horror film that she did. It's a Netflix original. That is a UK based one. What's it called? It's about they're like a brother and sister team who go out ghost hunting, and they kind of are conning people, but it turns out she actually does have the gift to see ghosts and stuff, and it's quite good. And again, she probably gives one of the most powerful performances in it. But watching that and then watching Midsommar, and just like the step up in terms of her skills from, like, obviously I think that film's fairly early on in her career, and then Midsommar, she just like again spends most of her time in this film like crying and absolutely wailing, but she is nailing it in the wailing it,
nailing the wailing,
because it's just the absolute levels of grief. I'd imagine she had to get some sort of support after doing this film, because they really she really goes for it.
she doesn't hold back at all. And I think before she did this, she's obviously done quite a few movies, but she was a rising star. She'd won the BAFTA Rising Star. She was at least nominated. I can't remember if she won it or not, but she did like Lady Macbeth, and I know her from when she did Fighting with My Family, where she played the wrestler Paige.
Yes. Oh my goodness, I'd forgotten she did that great movie.
Yeah,
I love it.
I'm a massive wrestling fan, but it was produced by the Rock's production company, I want to say. Rock with Dwayne Johnson.
Drawn the Rock Bronson.
So she was great in that. It wasn't, it was okay movie, like it was fun to watch, but she was brilliant in it. And then obviously this one was the one that really kind of elevated her to the next level, and people were just like, "Fuck, she's just an unreal actress." Triumph of the movie, and the whole way through it, just oh man, what a performance!
So good. I found the name of that other horror film. I was looking, if anybody is interested in looking up, it's called Malevolent. And it's pretty good. It has Celia Emery in it as well.
Okay, nice.
Anyone is interested. So yeah, it's good. But we're here to talk about Midsommar.
Yes. But the co-stars of Midsommar with Florence Pugh is Jack Reynor. Good Irish man.
Yes.
I first saw him in that movie What Richard Did from about 2012. I think it was pretty low budget Irish movie. Check it out. But he's very good in it. Decent cast, pretty well written, and he's went from strength to strength. I say strength to strength. He did a Transformers movie, which it's a good payday. I'm sure if he's doing stuff like that.
He kind of what he reminds me of. He's like, what if you smushed Seth Rogen and Chris Pratt together?
Right. Okay.
Look at him. I was watching it again yesterday. I was rewatching Midsommar yesterday. I was watching him and was just like, you're like Seth Rogen and Chris Pratt smushed together. I don't know why. I thought
he had a wee bit of a Hemsworth about him. He looked a wee bit Hemsworthy.
Maybe we could throw in a little Hemsworth in there too.
He's great. He's actually great in the Irish film Sing Street. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
No, I've heard it's good.
Brilliant movie.
I must go on that too.
Brilliant movie. Everybody go and watch that now. He's fantastic in it. But fantastic movie. But he again in this, he's just like, man, you hate him and you want to kill him, and you root for Danny the whole way through it, and you just want him to make the mistake. You want him to get his comeuppance, which he does. And
he does. I also feel he's a very, very selfish character.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, even from the start, when it's kind of just before everything kind of kicks off with Danny's family, they're kind of talking on the phone, and then the phone call ends, and then you have the friend. So you have Danny's friend telling her over the phone, like, you just need to cut it off, it's not going anywhere. And then you have all his friends being like, why are you still with her? Like, you're miserable, and you're not coming out, and you're not having the crack. And he comes out with the line, oh, well, what if I can't get her back when, what if I make a mistake and can't get her back by breaking up with her? So he's holding on to her because he's uncertain about what he would get after her. And then obviously her with her family suicided. You can't just break up with somebody after something like that happens.
I think he's obviously an arsehole.
Yeah.
Very selfish person. I think at the start of the movie, you can sort of see it from his side a little bit, in the sense that, obviously their relationship has gone down the pan, and, he doesn't really love her. She sort of says that, she's not sure if there's anything in the relationship either. And he's at the point where he's like, oh, I'll keep going and see how it goes, see what happens. And he's being egged on with his mates by sort of saying, oh, get rid of her, it's not going to happen. And as you say, you can't really, dump someone who's in a position where they've lost their family.
Yeah.
And it just goes from worse to worse. But there is a line there somewhere where it's just like, oh, you are a fucking cunt. He says something shortly after that. I think it's just before he invites her to the festival. He says something to his mate. I can't remember what the exact line of dialogue is, but it's just like, no, you're a fucking bastard. I hope you get fucking your comeuppance.
And then it's not even, there's that there, obviously, his whole relationship with Danny. You're kind of like, would you just fuck off and leave her alone? Like, obviously she doesn't, as a character, she is already alone. Like, yes, Christian's there, but she might as well be alone the way he gets on.
Yeah.
But even his attitude then, Christian, with like his mate with Josh, who's doing Josh has gone out to the
Mhm.
festival with the intention of doing his thesis on it.
Yeah.
And then Christian's just kind of along for the ride, but then decides while he's out there, well, actually, I'm going to do it here too.
Yeah.
Like, yes, he is kind of telling Josh, but he's also riding on Josh's coattails because he can
Mhm.
basically just do the same research, get all the same answers. But he can be like, oh, but mine's solely focused on this one community. Yours is going
Mhm.
to be like about different communities, and you're just kind of like, you're an arsehole. Like you
Yeah.
literally are just trying to get by on everyone else.
Yeah. Once you get to Sweden and the festival starts, and you can tell this guy's just a fucking dick.
Mhm.
And you're rooting for Danny the whole way through, and you feel sorry for her. Obviously, you feel sorry for her because she's had this horrible, tragic thing happen to her at the start of the film. But even throughout the movie, you're just like, I want her to find herself. I want something to happen to her.
You just want her to be okay. I
Yeah,
think that's the main thing at the end of it. You want Danny to be okay
I know.
because she doesn't really deserve anything. Like there's no where we as an audience are given no reason for her to be going through everything that she's gone through.
Mhm.
There's nothing to indicate that she's a bad character or has
No,
really any flaws.
absolutely not.
Whereas we get it from all the other characters, like all the guys in this film are all Josh seems okay, but again, he's willing to do anything for his research. Christian is an asshole playing nice guy, and then Mark's just an asshole who's an asshole.
Mm.
And then even the Swedish characters like Pele does seem dead on. He does seem to have Danny's best interests at heart, but
Mm.
he also still brought them all there to be
Yeah,
sacrificed and turned into May Queen so that
yeah,
they may carry on their village lineage.
exactly. Yeah, no, he's a nice guy, but he's got this horrible
He
intent.
has his community's best interest at heart.
Yeah, exactly. But originally, before this Midsummer turned out the way it turned out, it was initially just supposed to be like a straight up slasher movie about a Swedish cult,
Mhm.
and then it was actually Ari Aster who, whenever he was brought in on board to direct it, he and write it, he completely sort of changed the idea and said we need it to be more than just a slasher movie. So he was going through like a difficult breakup at the time, or he'd just gone through a difficult breakup. So he decided to bring that into the story, which obviously made it much more than what it was originally. I think it adds to it as well because the whole film is about grief, and you maybe wouldn't have that connection with it if it was just a straight up slasher.
Yeah.
The words that he said was, "It's a breakup movie dressed in the clothes of a folk horror film," which is the perfect
That's a
description of this
pretty
movie.
good way to describe it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know. So, basic plot. We all know the plot. Obviously, Danny's got this horrible thing happen to her, and her parents and her sister are now dead. And her and Christian have almost broke up. And in fact, Christian is going to break up with her, I think. And then he decides to invite her to this festival, which he's been invited to by his pals. And he's thinking that she's going to say no, but she's like, I'm going to go because it might be good for me to get out and do something with my life and somehow try to get over this horrible incident that's happened. Um, when they get to Sweden, man, it's so gorgeous. We talked about it. It's beautiful.
Amazing. It's
Like
such a good like that initial the when they first drive up to the field and they get out to like say hello to all the other people who are starting to arrive for the festival. And you just see those like rolling fields of flowers and it's fucking you want to go. Like I would love to go to something like that, but without the whole kind of culty
yeah,
murdery, skin you,
getting
burn
murdered,
you alive type
cut your
stuff.
legs off and
Yeah,
all. Yeah,
like everything else would be fine. Maybe not the pube pie and period wine, but everything else would be fine.
yeah.
you know.
So it's basically it's a commune.
Yeah.
It's not a cult. We're not going to call it a cult, Danny. It's a commune.
Sorry, a commune.
The
Of
commune is called
Nordic-y.
What is it? Harga?
Hurt.
Harga? I think it's called Harga. Is the commune, and initially they're obviously brought in and welcomed, and they know it's a very sort of hippie like atmosphere, and they take is it mushrooms at the start? They're given mushrooms straight
Take
away.
when they get into the first field, they go to take mushrooms, and Danny kind of says, you know, maybe I'd rather find my footing first. I'll take it later. And Christian's like, I'll fine, I'll wait. I'll have it with you later. But then Mark and the other guys kind of are like, you know, all right, cool, whatever. Like, just use be nerds basically. But then it is Pele's brother comes over.
Mm-hmm.
Engelman, I think.
Ingmar, I think it's
Ingmar. He's like, oh, we also have it in tea form if you'd rather take it that way. So then that kind of brings them round to trying it. And it's when they're all like lying and sitting, that's when we first get to experience the like pulsating, wavy nature around them as Danny's tripping. And that for me basically starts off the whole kind of like of this journey. But yeah, so they take that, and then Danny goes to walk off, and she ends up passing out in the forest. And when she wakes up, then they're on their way to the actual commune, to the village.
The village.
The village.
So we know something bad's going to happen because, you know, it's a horror film. But we don't know quite how bad it's going to be. But one of the first major incidents is whenever they go to like a ritual. They're not sure what it is, but we see these two elderly people up on the top of a mountain, and boom, they jump off the fucking mountain. So that's bad enough.
It's so grim. It's such a moment. Because what the woman jumps first and basically just caves her entire face in, and you get that close up of like just the caved in face, but there's like an eye popping out here, and there's a bit of skull flapping, and it's just straight up like, and you can just see it's Danny's reaction to just before she jumps. It's just before the jump happens, or just as she's about to jump off the cliff, Danny grabs Christian's arm, and then you hear the scream as she face plants this rock at the bottom of the cliff.
And then the man jumps.
And the man jumps. He goes
down. And he survives the jump.
He breaks his legs.
Which is fucking
and
horrible.
Get a nice close-up of blood gushing out of his like absolutely mangled leg. Yeah.
And that's bad enough. So we're still recovering from seeing that. And then we get the worst scene ever. Where we see a couple of people and they've got this big massive fucking mallet.
Big mallet, yeah.
And we're like, I wonder what they're going to do with that mallet. Are they going to fucking dig up some soil? Are they going to plant some flowers? Are they going to try and attach it to the man's
fence
broken
posts?
leg?
Maybe some fence posts?
Yeah. Are they going to use the mallet to lift this broken man into an ambulance and send him to the hospital?
Because that's what you do with mallets.
Because that's what you do with mallets. No, they cave his face in.
They take it in turns to cave his skull in.
It's one of the most brutal scenes I've ever seen in my life.
It's the crunching and the squishing, like the sounds of that scene are just crazy. And again, we kind of get between the two events happening, you get that moment where it's Danny's having some sort of, she's obviously like in her own head, so everything around her is blurred and all the voices are muffled, like almost blocked out, because I think we as the audience are reacting the same way Danny is. We're a bit just kind of like what's just happened. Like if you've not seen this film before, and that scene happen, you just kind of go like it takes your breath away and absolutely leaves you stunned, because it is like it doesn't cut away, it doesn't hold its punches, it shows you everything that's happening. Again, we kind of get the Americans kind of, they don't really, they do obviously like scream and are in shock by it, and I think Christian Boakes, but the characters who actually really react to it, the other outsiders, are the Londoners, Connie and Simon, who Engelman has brought with them, and they're freaking out. Simon's shouting like, you don't have to do this at the man who's about to jump, and then they're asking what this is about, and this is fucked, we're leaving. And then you get the elder woman kind of comes over and tries to explain to him, this is one of the rights of our community, and rather than just grow old and moldy with death, we give ourselves into it. We go with dignity, we go on our own terms. But they have none of it in that moment. The two characters from London, and I think you can kind of see the West. Obviously, the more Western characters are the American ones, but they're just kind of stunned and shocked into silence. But then you do get the other Western ideal of, no, you shouldn't be. I think there's something to be said about euthanasia and stuff in that moment, I think, as well. The whole kind of choice of, do you choose how you want to go, if you want to go out, or is it a communal manslaughter?
Yeah, I think well, that's another conversation.
A whole other conversation. Yeah.
But I think that in the manner in which it happened, is the shocking. It's the shocking thing. They've done it in front of an audience. Yeah. It's a very ritualistic thing. It took a long time for them to get up the mountain, and there was chanting and stuff, and it was very ritualistic. So it's clearly a tradition.
Yeah, they have their moment. There's the ruin at the top of the mountain, which when they get to the top, they have their hands cut,
yes,
and then they run their bloodied hands down this stone covered in ruins. And it's just, I remember the first time seeing it in the cinema, and that moment, I'm pretty sure the whole screen just were like, you heard everybody sort of take that big breath in, because you're just like, what the fuck? Like, what just happened? And the absolute detail of everything, it does not hold back at all. Oof. But it's so well lit. It's such a lovely, again, everything about it looks so lovely. But then you've the gruesome details of it all.
A lot of the times, you'll cut away from that image, or you'll hear it but you won't see it, or you'll see it maybe from a different perspective, or it'll be something will blur it out somehow, or it's done in the dark so you don't fully see it. But this is like broad daylight and you just see it, and it's just like fuck.
Big open space. It's like a big quarry or something. And again, it's all against like white rock. It's like, it's not even like a big dark cliff. It's a big white like limestone cliff. So everything is just out in the light for you to see. And
it's fucking brutal.
What a scene.
Whenever I watched it, when it happened, I just paused. I paused it because I had streamed it. I wasn't watching it. I didn't go to the cinema to see it. I was watching it whenever it came out on like Amazon or something. And I paused the film and just went and had a cup of tea, and because I had to just like, what have I just watched? And then I came back and watched the rest of it, and I was kind of like, obviously I've seen loads of gore before, but this was just slightly different. This was something more real about this for some reason. Real.
Yeah, and I think it is because it doesn't try to hide it from you. And it shows you the details of like a caved in skull, and the details of his like spurting mangled leg. And I mean, that's, I think if anyone fears anything like going near the edge of a cliff, you automatically go, that's a bad idea.
Aye.
And that's what probably makes it more real, is because you're like, that's exactly what would happen if you fell off a cliff. That's exactly what you would see. What a scene, the one impactful scene, and it sets everything up for, it sets a lot of it up for, in terms of what we're to expect of the gory details for this movie. What I love, even before we get to this scene though, is a lot of foreshadowing. There's loads of foreshadowing of what's to come. There's the lovely tapestry of the love story, which obviously plays out for Christian. And then you have the kids are doing almost like, not a conga line, but they're doing like a big dancey chain. And they're like, oh, what's that called? What are the kids doing? And it's called skinning the fool. And that obviously is then Mark's fate, because we get to see him later dressed up as a fool when he's sacrificed. And there's just, lots of those sort of little details throughout the film, whether it's in like the tapestries or folk tales.
There's a lot of murals in the background of different scenes that basically show you what's going to happen. There's one with a bear in it at the start.
Yeah, the big communal like barn that they're in, they sleep in, and all the images around the wall, those lovely sort of tapestry, medieval looking art images that are around the place. And again, they're all like little hints of what's to come. And it's such a beautiful set. Like, yes, all the nature outside it, but then you go into those wee moments and those lovely like wooden huts and stuff. And I love it. I love it. It's so well put together.
This is kind of like the first major big scene that just slaps you in the face, and there's a few more that happens, but this is kind of the main one. And then it's just kind of all not downhill from here. It is for the characters,
yeah.
But for us, we're on the edge of our seats. It's very much a mystery now. Like,
what's going to happen next?
What's going to happen? Like, we know this is a cult or commune, whatever you want to say. What is their plan? We have an idea that probably everyone's going to die. How are they going to do it? Why are they doing it? You know, are they going to explain it, or are they just going to come out and say we just like killing people? But we do get an explanation near the end. But before that happens, you know, you were talking about Simon and Connie, the English folk. They try to get away, and then obviously we know that they are sacrificed. They disappear. As such.
Well, he's gone ahead to the station, but there's not enough room in the van.
Yes,
for more than two people, so Connie has to wait, and then she's eventually led away as well. And
then a couple of the other guys that had went to the commune with Danny and Christian disappear too.
Mark's one of the first. Mark disappears not long after he pisses on the ancestral tree, which fucks everyone off.
Yes.
And he's basically just being a knobhead the whole time. Like, he's obviously only there to get laid, because he constantly talks about how hot the Swedish women are and how he wants to get laid when he's in Europe and all this here. And then he ends up getting lured away by one of the hot Swedish women. Lure him away during one of their big dinners. I love the way that, again, even the way they set the communal like dining tables out, and it's all done in the shape of the ruins and stuff, and everyone can kind of like turn and talk to each other, and you can talk across the way. It's fucking lovely set design. But yes, Mark gets led away and skinned.
Yeah.
Which we later that scene when we find out that Mark isn't actually Mark.
He's lost his face, and he's
somebody
else
been skinned, and it's the Rudiger?
Oh God,
Radiger?
I don't know.
It's we later find out about so Josh and Christian have been given permission to do their research, as long as they change names and locations in their study to not reveal the commune's identity or location. But Josh is getting he's being talked through the sacred texts.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but yeah.
Something of Ridiga or something like that. But it basically turns out that all these like sacred texts, there's like hundreds of them, and they've always been written by a child who is the result of incest, because they believe that this incestuous child is pure of heart, because they have no other mental faculties to cloud their visions. Which, again, when you find that out, you're just like, what? And you get to see like their prophet is like severely handicapped. Is just, I think they used a lot of some of the early promo image and stuff. They used that character who's kind of almost like a Quasimodo-esque type. Sort of, big brow and the massive lips and kind of hunched over.
Yeah, his face sort of would kind of remind you of like the Elephant Man. He's got that big protruding brow and the lips and stuff like that. So, but he was used in a lot of the early promo work. But he's not really in it that much.
He's not in the film that much.
Other than this part, really.
When you kind of going into the film, you kind of thought that was going to be a bigger character. But he's not. He's just a sort of tool to explain how this community works. So you find that out, and then later on, Josh goes back to try and take photographs of the sacred text, and he believes Mark's coming behind him, but it's not Mark at all. It's actually Rudiger in Mark's skin, and you can just hear it's that heavy breathing he does. The heavy breathing the character does as he's coming up behind him. And you're just like, oh, this isn't right.
I know.
And he ends up, does he not get hit with a big mallet too? They get a wild good use out of that mallet.
They have to, man.
I'm pretty sure they
They
crack
paid
him
a lot of
across the
money for
dome
that
with it.
mallet.
That's a big money mallet.
Yeah, that's a big mallet, boy.
But he gets cracked in the dome and dragged off as well for daring look upon the sacred texts, trying to take pictures of the sacred text.
Yeah, and then I think so. Mark's gone, Josh is gone, the two English guys are gone. Who's that? So it's really just Christian and Danny.
Christian and Danny are the only two left. Yeah.
They're basically left, and then their paths kind of just go like that, really.
Yeah.
Heading into the finale or the last act of this movie.
It really does. After it sort of, once everyone starts disappearing, it really like ramps up. Like it really sort of starts to pacing up to get to the end, and not in a bad way. I feel like everything, it's all just come into place really nice. In that the commune know exactly what it is they have to do to get these people where they want them. And it's fantastic. And the whole thing with like the way they all kind of come together in this big group lie to completely brainwash the people that are around them, and just be one step ahead of them the whole time. Like when Connie and Simon first disappear, and Danny's going over and asking, oh well, did Connie not go with them, or did Connie? And the way that another character who you've not seen interact with that other character is in on the lie, and you're just like, that's such a, it shows how tight knit that community is, that they're all kind of able to do that. And then later on we find out that their excuse for Mark and Josh leaving is that the sacred text has been stolen, and they believe that the Americans have run off with it, leaving Danny and Christian to kind of do the apologies but also play along with this community's traditions.
And then so at this point you're just like, what the fuck is going to happen next? There's a lot of mad shit happens up to this point, and then we get that incredible famous sequence where the maypole scene, which is just unforgettable. We've seen clips of it in trailers and all over the internet and stuff. It's a really iconic scene now, I think, where Danny takes part in crowning the new maypole queen.
You have to keep dancing,
and they just constantly dance until
run around in a circle and
they can drop, basically.
Was it because the woman says at the start, or just before the start of the
I need to fix my crown here, 2 seconds, Danny.
Fix your crown. Did you dance for that? Did you do your?
Of course I did.
And take the weird drug tea.
Oh yes.
They had to take their drug drink to give them vigor for their dancing. But yes, the guy explained to them that it's been an age-old tradition, and they used to dance until they died, and whoever managed to outdance the rest of them was crowned. And what a great scene. And again, it's another scene where you kind of get to see like when they're sort of tripping, everyone's faces look magnified, like the expressions on people's faces almost look bigger, and you get all the pulsating and stuff. So again, just anytime there's a trip in this movie, I'm like, this is a bad time.
Well, see, for me, that whole maypole scene, just, man, the anxiety was fucking riddled through me. I don't know why. I was shaking. It did something to me. It was very strange. It's not a horrific scene at all, but
no.
It's
the pace of it.
It's
enough. It's enough to make you feel motion sick, because it's constant. Like, it doesn't stop. Anytime you're with Danny, it's just you're constantly moving.
There's a couple of interesting takes on this film. We talked about the whole drugs. Obviously they're being sort of drugged from the moment that they go into this commune, and it's pretty subtle. Some of it's not so subtle. But even whenever they eat and drink, I think we're to assume that it's been laced with something. And they are, to a certain extent, hallucinating certain things that they see. But what I love about this movie is it doesn't explain what is hallucinations and what's not hallucinations. But an interesting take is that the whole maypole dance sequence, did they allow Danny to win? Did she, how much of that was hallucination, and how much, did it go on for as long as it did? And what else are they sort of experiencing that is real or that isn't real and that's just in their mind? I think that's a good conversation
That's
to talk about. What's your idea on the whole? Are they drugged, and what's real and what's not real?
I feel like they definitely like because it's kind of explained to her when she's gonna, she's like, "Oh, what is this?" Because I kind of feel like Danny already kind of knows that there's, she's already drank mushroom tea, and I think she's aware that chances are there's probably some sort of herbal extract
I think
in this drink.
I think at this point she's kind of opened herself up, and
Mhm.
she's just allowing herself to be free now. And she doesn't really. It's not that she doesn't care what happens, but she's just saying, "I'm just going to go."
Yeah, she kind of wants to go with it, but she still wants to know what it is. But
Mm.
she's just told, "Oh, it's just tea for the ceremony," sort of thing. And yeah, and then going into the dancing, I'm not sure. I feel like it is real because you can tell like how exhausted everybody is. But in terms of did they let her win? Maybe the character that she's dancing with bumps into another girl. The other girl
Yeah.
seems to have just randomly stopped in the middle of a spinny roundy dancing competition. So you kind of wonder, well, is this intentional, and have they chosen her because they need new blood in the community to help carry on
Mm-hmm.
making the babies? Pretty much, because that's again something that's referenced early on in the film is every so often we invite outsiders, so we we don't have as much incest. We have new bloodlines.
And then after she wins, obviously she's crowned, and we have that amazing sequence. But then she's sort of led off to.
They have a dinner first.
It's like blessing the. What is it? It's like blessing the crops or
Expressing the
something.
harvest, yeah, they put
Yeah.
like a piece. But even before that, they have like a dinner,
Oh, the big yes, of
and
course.
they give her the herring. They try to make her eat a whole herring tail first for good luck. But she doesn't manage to eat it. But they're just like, but again, it's in that moment you're kind of like, is everybody high? Like I feel like the whole community is just high and like enjoying themselves. The only person who's not enjoying himself is Christian, but he kind of deserves it. It's the bit when I was rewatching it yesterday, and Christian's kind of tripping, and he looks at the old man beside him. And he's like, "What's going on?"
Mm-hmm.
And the old man just goes in his face, but the whole like screen like ripples around him. Mm-hmm. Christian's like, "What did you do that for?" You're just like, you deserve that. But also, like, if that had been me and someone did that, I'd have been like,
I know.
I'd have just cried.
I would have just went away and like fucking under a tree somewhere and slept.
Yeah, just sleep it off. But there's that whole bit with the dinner, and even before it's actually even before that, and it's a moment where I think you start to realize that Danny is moving past her grief a bit, in that she sees as she's going through, she's being led through the crowd, she's just been crowned, and everybody's congratulating her and patting her on the shoulder, and Pele's just give her a big kiss and all, and she sees her mum walk towards her in the crowd, and she kind of turns and says "mum," but then she looks away, like she's just back in the moment again. And I feel like in that moment she's starting to kind of move past, the image of her mum is no longer her mum deceased. Her mother is within that community, is part of the, is in the dress of the community.
Well, I thought, and this is probably a silly take. It's not a take as such, but because they all wear white, because obviously it's tradition. It's it's very Scandinavian. It's very representative of what heaven might look like.
Mm.
And whenever she sees her mother, is her mother in heaven? Is that her in her own heaven? Kind of. You say she kind of walks past her mother when she says hello to her, so it's almost like she has got past that grief. But I don't know. I'd love to get a proper explanation from Ari Aster. I know there's maybe not a proper explanation, but I just feel like there's a lot more to this. I feel like
anybody knows Ari again to hit us up.
Is this her heaven?
Mm-hmm.
Is this her own fairy tale? Because it is a fairy tale. This film is a fairy tale. In the beginning, she's grief stricken. She's an orphan, which happens a lot in fairy tales, and she has to go on a journey to find herself. And then at the end, she becomes a queen. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's a fairy tale from start to finish. Obviously, horrific stuff happening in it, but you look at all those classic fairy tales. All of those, they're full of horrific things. Disney cut a lot of stuff out whenever they make them, but the original fairy tales are
the Grimm's fairy tales. Yeah. Oh, they're quite grim.
So it was just, is this heaven?
Tech, maybe.
It's interesting. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I don't know. Let us know what you think of the. Have you got a tech? let us know in the comments and give us your vibe on the movie. But we're heading into sort of finale now, and it's at the dinner scene where Christian locks eyes.
He gets
with
lured
the other girl,
away
isn't
by
it?
the ginger girl. Yeah.
I think her name is
Pele's
Maya
sister
or something. Yeah. And so as Danny gets lured away to bless the harvest, Christian gets lured away to procreate.
Yeah.
Against his will, sort of.
What a mental. This is another scene that when it happened, I was just like, what?
Yeah, I know. What? I mean, this is it's not as horrific viscerally image wise and stuff, but it is just as terrifying because
it's such a strange scene.
It kind of reminded me of something from Suspiria or something like that. You know, like witchcrafty and
I was going to say witches. Yeah, the whole kind of notion of because he walks into. Oh no, he gets presented. The Owl Boys kind of greet him first. One of them's like for vigor and like puts this like smoke under his nose. Basically gives him like boner smoke or something. I don't know. And then
Viagra.
He gets Viagra smoke here. Take a whiff of this and you'll be hard for days.
I know.
And then he gets led into the barn, which is I think is it the same building that the sacred text is kept in?
It looks kind of very similar.
So that seems to be sort of like a chapel or a place of worship. And then it's the ginger girl's like laid out on this bed of flowers, naked, surrounded by a semicircle of like naked women from the community of like all ages.
Yeah, all sizes, all different looking.
And he's just like ball bag naked, standing there, like expected to go over and just start into it. But he just seems to he's like. We assume high as fuck by this point, but even if you would you ever?
Well, I just assume that he has zero control over his own body. He's under some sort of spell. You know, maybe not a real spell, not like witchcraft spell, but he's definitely drugged. He's being manipulated to come here and to come in her because he needs to procreate. They want to procreate. Yeah, so it. And now is he the outsider that they're talking about? Because you don't know.
He probably they're probably whilst yes he is eventually going to become a sacrifice. Well, actually he is a choice for a sacrifice. They don't actually choose him to be sacrificed. No. He doesn't have to die. It's entirely down to Danny whether he dies or not. Obviously, given everything that has happened prior to the choosing, it's pretty obvious why she chooses him. But yeah, in that moment where he's kind of going in to help further the bloodline of the commune. It's just that it's such a fucking weird. They're all like chanting and swaying around him, and then one of the women, who I'm going to assume is her mother, maybe, like goes over and she reaches out to her, and he kind of goes to grab her hand, but then this woman comes down and grabs her hand instead. And it's just like comforting her, and they're all kind of doing like this like rhythmic like exhaling and chanting to go with her.
It's like a weird sexy Laban's class.
Yeah.
Like all that sort of breathing that you would do when you're having a kid. Or when you're preparing yourself to have a child.
Exactly. And it's just weird. It's so, and then it's not even so obviously she's like crouched over her now and he's just kind of looking at her, but then she starts like touching his face and like chanting into his face, and I was just like, and he's still kind of going, like he's still kind of rocking it, and you're like, this is a bit much. But and then it gets even fucking weirder when like one of the old ladies comes up behind him and starts like pushing his hips.
I know.
And you're just like,
here, I'll help you, son.
The fuck? Like, how Granny Mush is coming behind you to give you a hand.
Well, they have to make sure that he fucking delivers the goods, you know.
Well, that's it, and I mean, it finishes what after he's sort of done what he needs to do. She throws the legs back and starts rocking back and forth, saying, "I can feel the baby, I can feel the baby." So she's just trying to make sure that not a drop is wasted.
No.
All ends up in the bucket.
Oh Jesus, Danny! That's sick. In the bucket. That's fucking.
Every sperm is sacred,
yes.
As Monty Python says. Every sperm is good.
Sacred.
If a sperm is wasted, God gets quite irate. Yeah. So that there, what a fucking, and it's
crazy.
Obviously, we've had Danny is off sort of blessing the crop, and then she's being taken back, I think, to prepare her for the final ceremony, but she hears the chanting and the breathing, you know, the kind of, they're all breathing in the rhythm. Yeah, Lamaz. So, and she goes and looks through the keyhole, and it doesn't show, it just shows the kind of light coming through the keyhole onto her face, and then she sees and starts to panic. She sort of is having a panic attack, and all the other women kind of come up behind her and lead her off then back to the communal barn for the young people, and she's kind of bundled onto her bed and in the recovery position, and they're all kind of comforting her and speaking away to her, and then she crawls off onto the ground and starts wailing, but they all start to like wail with her and like breathe with her and let it all out. And again, I think that's the first time you see them all do that communal like wailing and grieving together. And I think in that moment I was like, that seems like a really powerful thing. There's a real sense, I don't know, there's a real sense of power, I think, for Danny in that moment, is in that she's joined by a group of women to just get it out, to just like scream and wail and cry.
Well, the whole thing, man, we said at the very start of the episode, like, she was alone at the start. She was in a relationship, but Christian didn't really care or didn't want to be with her. She couldn't grieve with anyone else. She was completely alone, and this is the first time in the whole film where she's been able to grieve with other women, and they're completely in that moment with her, and nobody's holding back. They're all giving it their all, and it's the first time I think that she's been able to say, yeah, I can grieve, and I don't need to be ashamed to grieve, or I don't have to feel like a burden if I'm grieving, and I can just give it all out. And they're taking it, and it is a very, very powerful scene, and it's, you know, it's been memed, you know, endlessly online since, but it is a really strong, powerful scene, and fuck me, what a scene.
It's the scene then leading out after that. So you know, Christian's kind of done what he has to do. He seems to snap out of the trance he's in, and he runs out of the barn, place of worship, and his ding-a-ling,
his wee dinghy hanging,
his wee dinghy is just flapping about, and he sees like a group of people and then kind of covers himself, but he goes to run towards the like sleeping barn, but he hears that group grief. He hears them all wailing, and he almost seems like scared. He kind of runs, and he seems alarmed by it. And I feel like that in that moment, he's actually, again, there's that sense of fear from him from hearing that communal grief. He suddenly is like, oh fuck, like he can't deal with that right now. It's not in his character to deal with grief and to deal with a group of people grieving. And then he goes to run off, and does he not end up getting bunked as well? Or no, he runs into the barn, he runs into the chicken coop, and he sees Simon hung up from the roof with the lungs out of his back, but they're still like filling up. And then an old man appears behind him and blows some fucking sleepy powder in his face. It's that bit as well, and he falls to the ground like paralyzed, and the wee old man like closes his eyelids one at a time. And it was just a nice wee moment where he kind of comes over and he's just like, boop, boop. And I was just like,
he's completely paralyzed, isn't he? He can't move, but he can see things, but he can't move his body.
Yep.
And then fuck me, the finale, like, we just go from crazy scene to crazy scene to crazy scene. We get that fucking mad finale where he's encased.
It's not even, before that we get, because the old man closes his eyes, and then the next minute his wee eyelids are getting opened back up, and some woman like explains to him like, you're paralyzed, you can't move, you can't speak, you can just hear and see what's going on. And he's like in a wee wheelchair, but he's all like dressed up like one of them now. And they kind of explain like we've to make 9 sacrifices. There's already 2 of our own, which is the old couple from the start. We've the 4 brought to us by Pele and Ingeman, and 2 of our own have also chosen to sacrifice. Ingeman sacrificing some other chap are going to sacrifice themselves, and it's up to our queen now to make the choice of the 9th. She can either sacrifice Christian or one of the community, and it's her face in that scene. It's just because she's not kind of moving at all. She's got the massive crown on now and this big fucking flowery Jabba the Hutt silhouette, like a massive train behind it, and she's just sitting there, and her face is she's just kind of like,
she's just like a wee flowing head in a big hedge of like beautiful flowers.
Yeah, and she's just the like her. she looks. It's just all emotion is gone now.
She's emotionless.
She's just completely. She's wheeled it all out. Like everything she's had, she's managed to get out with that crowd woman. She's just kind of in that moment. It's just like, like, and I think then she kind of comes to terms once she kind of makes her choice.
She's reborn. I think she's a completely new woman.
Yeah,
and
then we get to see Christian be put into because early on in the film, like way at the start, when the English couple are being taken off by Engelman somewhere, and Simon's like, "We're not going to talk about the bear," and Engelman's just like, "It's a bear." They just carry on. But then obviously later on we find out what the bear is going to be used for. The one of the town elders is showing a group of young boys how to take the guts out of a bear.
Dissect it, yeah.
How to dissect a bear, and then they lift up Christian and pop him on inside.
Yeah. So he's fucking encased in this bear carcass.
Yeah.
And it's, again, just iconic imagery.
Yep.
That will last forever, and it's
his wee face.
It's weird, sort of out of context imagery as well. Like if you didn't know what the fuck it was, you'd be like, "What is this weird fucking? Why is this guy inside a bear?" It's just so bizarre, but it really works, and it's terrifying.
It's so iconic for this film, you know. It's so, I think, as you say, if you haven't seen the film, you wouldn't get it, but if you do know the film and you even see, like, I think one of the images that really floats about that a lot of people you see on T-shirts, stuff like that, is just the like triangle house with like a bear coming out of it with it, you know, and it's a light. And yeah, again, people just immediately go, "Oh, Midsommar."
Yeah. You know. So Danny basically chooses him then to be sacrificed, and in that little yellow cabin is him and the other people that are being sacrificed, and they're all kind of dressed up in their own little ways.
Yeah, you've got Mark's a wee fool. He's got a wee fool's cap on, and I think Simon's got like flowers in his eyes, and I can't remember. I think Josh has got something like stuffed in his mouth, which again I'm not sure if that's meant to, you know, silence him from revealing stuff in his study. And it's one of the ones that one of their own people, the dead one, has like branches for arms, just like big bad branches for arms, and then you've got the two who are still alive that are sacrificing themselves from the community, are given like a remedy from the yew tree or something to feel no pain, which again turns out to be bullshit.
Of course,
because your man just fucking, when he gets set alight, he's just like, "Ah!" and you're like, "Fucking, this is awful." Oh, what a moment though! What a moment when they set the whole thing alight, and again you have this kind of like cheery tune playing as everything lights up, and then eventually it sort of bursts into strings when the community start like grieving and screaming and like seem almost possessed. Like they're all kind of acting as if they're on fire and they're trying to like pat themselves out, but it's just because they're mimicking the screams coming from inside.
Yeah, I also think that's them purging themselves of evil or impurities or whatever it is they're trying to do or try to accomplish from this sacrifice. But it's like they're purging themselves, so they're physically doing the movements and stuff, and it's. But then you have Danny, who's just like sort of sitting there
walking along. She's sort of like not crawling, but just real lumbered movements, and that whole big dress is just trailing along behind her, and there are bits of flowers falling off, and she's just given into that grief there as well, given into the crying and stuff. But then
her face is kind of emotionless, and then just at the very last second, you get that wee smirk, the wee smile that creeps over her face, and that kind of just sums the whole film up. That she's
done it. She's got to where she wants to be.
Her grief is gone. You know, has it gone? Will it ever return? We don't know, but she has been reborn.
It's burned up with everything that was in that. In that barn. Yeah.
She's now the queen of Midsommar.
Midsommar.
Midsommar. But one of the things we briefly talked about, like the runes and stuff and the costumes. The costumes are fucking amazing in this.
So good.
They
look so comfortable.
Yeah, a lot of them
being on that set and just
I know.
walking about in those like lovely pajama sort of clothes.
A lot of them look quite simple until you kind of look at them, and they're very intricate. But they were done by a lady called Andrea Flesch, who also did costumes for loads of movies, but one that stuck out was the Duke of Burgundy. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
No.
It's a great movie, but it's beautiful, like really stylish and just really aesthetically beautifully done, and the costumes are fantastic in it. So she's very, very talented. But on each of the person's costume, they're all individual costumes. They all look different. There's not one or two that
different wee rune symbols
here. Different runes, yeah.
The flower, the patterns coming across here and down the center and
that's
stuff.
Class.
And
I love that. I love little details like that. And
gorgeous.
The rune on Danny's is like an R symbol, and there's an hourglass beside it as well, I think.
Maybe.
And it's supposed to, apparently, it's supposed to sort of symbolize like a journey where she's going on the ride of her life, and this is a journey from start to finish. And the hourglass is supposed to represent an awakening as such. So very symbolic of what actually does happen to her. But like this whole film has been foreshadowed pretty much since the start. I think there's actually subliminal images in the background as well. I want to say there's a moment where they're walking by a tree and the tree looks as if it's got a tube in its mouth or something.
There's something.
It looks like a face with a tube in its mouth or something. I can't remember. I have to look at these images and we'll post them up on our Twitter afterwards. But I just love all this kind of foreshadowing that you see in the background. It's one of those films that you kind of have to rewatch again then to see all this.
There's a fantastic, and I think it is in the film sort of early on in Danny's bedroom, but it's actually it's a print you can buy in IKEA.
Aye, it's the Princess and the Bear, isn't it?
Yeah, Princess and the Bear. So that's the image there. And again, that's in that I think it's in Danny's bedroom early on. You can see it. Yeah. And just the fact that there, even like what a giveaway straight at the start of the film. You know, a princess and a bear. I really love that. It's £15 in IKEA, by the way. IKEA sponsorship.
Sponsorship, yes. They've taken over Audible. But this is very much and has been praised critically and obviously by horror fans like ourselves. Fantastic movie, beautiful movie, fantastic,
gorgeous,
fantastic performances. It's one of those sort of kind of good for her movies, which a lot of people have been making lists about all these good for her movies recently, and this is one of them that kind of tops that list or is very close to the top. Do you think Christian deserved what he got? I know we were talked about that he was a dickhead and he's an arsehole and he's done all this. He's not been there for Danny, but did he deserve to die in the way that he did?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah. I feel like there was nothing, even, yes, what he did to Danny, the way he sort of treated Danny, and the way he treated his mates, like Josh and stuff. Like, there was nothing overly redeemable about him. Like, even there's the part where we find out that it's her birthday. Yeah. And, Pele's, giving her a drawing. And he's like, I don't do this for everybody. And, happy birthday. But later... Christian brings her a bit of cake with a candle and lights it and sings her happy birthday, and he's kind of like, because of the way the sun is, I forgot that it was today. I still thought it was yesterday. And you're kind of like, you almost doubt, you almost kind of go, well, did you, or is it because Pele told you it was her birthday?
Yeah.
That you're only remembering now. So yeah, there doesn't seem to be a lot of redeeming qualities for him.
No,
so I'm going to say aye.
He's a bullshitter. Aye, fuck him.
Fuck him.
It's also interesting that his name's Christian. What does that mean? Christian, Christian religion, and we're nice people and we do this and we're so we follow the rules and we do all this, but you're really fucking wolves in sheep's clothing. And I'm not saying you all deserve
not to generalize.
No. No, but it's interesting that he's called Christian.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Midsommar festivals are real things, as you know.
I'd love to go to one. I would absolutely love to go to one.
Thank God that
get murdered.
Yeah, I don't think that they murder people or that they sacrifice people. I could be wrong. However, apparently, this is legitimate tradition in certain areas of that part of the world, where communes have big mallets like that, and they do things with those mallets. So, I don't know how true this is or how far it goes back, but it's I suppose it's more folklore than anything else. But
I'd risk it. I just need to work on my dancing skills. That'd be sweet.
I know. Aye, exactly. I know. Fuck it. It'd be grand. And also, I'm already wearing a crown, so like I can wear a crown. So
exactly,
I can
wear a pretty flower crown.
Exactly. But I don't know if I'd want to eat pubic hair or anything like that.
The pubic hair pie and the period wine.
Yeah,
it was a bit much, but I mean, I understand it's obviously a love potion intended to woo.
Is it a thing where it's kind of like sort of drink my blood, my blood is now turned into wine type thing? Is it kind of symbolic of that? I don't know what the pubic hair is symbolic of, like, but
I think it's more to do with fertility. I imagine it's more to do with, and also to show that she's sexually ready. Because I think there's also a thing about when what was it? Oh, I think my sister has a thing for Christian. She recently got her. I can't remember the term he uses, but it basically is like terms for she's ready to have sex. She's a woman now.
Yeah.
And yeah, what an interesting thing to say about your own sister, eh?
Well, it's a fucking weird commune, incestuous commune.
Mm-hmm. So, whose profit is the incest, a result of incest.
Really. Exactly. Yeah, but yeah, amazing film. Love Midsommar. Please leave your comments in the comment section below, and let us know what you think about Midsommar. And also go back and watch our Kill List episode, because there's a couple of wee similarities with Kill List as well, especially the end, because he's given the crown as well at the end
and has to fight a hunchback.
He does, yeah. And has to sacrifice, unbeknownst to himself, he has to sacrifice his very own blood at the end, which is fucking horrific. Not as horrific as Midsommar, right enough, but
no,
still pretty damaging.
Still pretty crazy, and some intense scenes in there as well. But Midsommar's definitely a lot prettier to look at.
Yeah,
a lot brighter. Man, I'd love to go back to one of the places where it's just lovely sunshine all the time. Love it.
Let's go to Sweden then.
Let's go to Sweden or Iceland. Been to Iceland before.
It's filmed in Hungary, I think. It wasn't even filmed in Sweden.
Something, yeah. But yeah, no, I've been to Iceland before, so I've had the experience of that near 24-hour sunlight, and it's strange. It throws the body off something shocking. So maybe Christian wasn't lying. But yes, being exposed to as much drugs and as much constant daylight as they were, is any wonder that they were just going along for the
bastards.
I
know. Right. Anyway, that's all we have time for this week. Thanks for watching, guys. And you know what they have to do, Tony.
Oh, but I'll tell them anyway.
Tell them anyway, boy.
To like, comment, and subscribe, and also hit the bell icon. Here, over here.
No, it's up there.
Up there.
The bell's up, and the subscribe's here somewhere.
The bell is up and the subscribe is down. But yeah, like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what you think of Midsommar. Let us know what you think of Hereditary. Any other A24 flicks that you like. Big fan of Good Times. And yeah, share with your friends. Also, if you could go and give a little mention about our program in the video mentioned at the start.
Yeah,
that
go check out
the
Night Watch Zone. You can find it. We've retweeted it a few times on Twitter, so you can go and do that. And obviously follow us on the Twitter at the Fright Club NI, and follow us on the Instagram app at the Fright Club NI. Check out the website www.thefrightclubni.com. Buy a t-shirt and a patch if you can.
Yes.
Drop us a wee tip on there. Buy us a coffee. Help us out. We don't make any money.
We'll be able to go out for coffee soon.
No, I know. Places are opening now, so we can go out for coffee or tea. I drink tea. Not weird drunken, drug tea or anything. So
no drug tea.
Just normal fucking good Irish tea.
And who knows? Eventually, we might get to a point where we can actually do we can do a video together.
Together, yes.
Again, imagine.
And I'll be able to put my hands out like that, and you'll just see my hand coming in over your shoulder.
No.
Is it?
No.
No. We'll figure it out somehow. But yeah.
Eventually.
I know. So anyway, that's all we've got time for this week, guys. As we say, like, share, comment, subscribe, tell all your horror friends about us. Thanks for all the support so far. Check out the website and just keep watching the videos every week. We really appreciate your love and support. But until next week, all the best, guys. Take care. Stay safe. Cheers.
Bye.